Right in the midst of World War II, a significant battle took place that would later have great historical importance. In 1942, Prime Minister John Curtin said, "Very excellent news has been received. A naval engagement between the United States of America, Australian, and Japanese forces has resulted in damage to the enemy." This was referring to the Battle of the Coral Sea. The battle occurred between the 4th and the 8th of May in 1942 off the northeast coast of Queensland between Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. Those involved included Japan and the United States, who was allied with Australia. According to Robert Lewis in 2000, the battle was significant for two main reasons. These included: 1. It was the first time in World War that the Japanese had experienced failure in a major operation, and 2. The battle stopped the Japanese seaborne invasion of Port Moresby. What I'm proving to you today is that the Battle of the Coral Sea positively impacts future naval operations, effectively saving Australia and developing its current Navy force. As the Pacific War was in play at the time, the Japanese had plans to advance their troops into the Pacific region and gain control after their recent war success in 1941. They had a plan to widen their defensive perimeter and control the waters around Australia. To do that, they were intent on cutting off any and all supplies and communications between Australia and the US. However, the Allies were scheming and managed to intercept Japanese naval radio messages, which allowed them to quickly send Allied forces to intercept their invasion of Port Moresby. Their scheme was called Operation MO and was shut down by our Allies. It was due to their effective secret weapon, a radar, which was completely unknown to the Japanese. The strength of Australia and the US included 13 destroyers, 8 cruisers, 4 light cruisers, and 2 aircraft carriers in specific from the 128 others, called the USS Lexington and the USS Yorktown. Although to get into details, Australia's specific involvement included the HMAS Hobart cruiser, a base aircraft, and around 500 crew members. Looking at numbers, the Japanese did have a clear advantage, although that wasn't enough to hold off the determined Allies. Unlike many other naval battles, whereby each side's ships would just freely attack, this naval battle was carried out in a new, innovative way. This was the first battle ever where opposing ships were not within firing range, nor could they even see each other. The key to success was planes. More specifically, fighter aircrafts. The real genius behind this naval battle was how both sides effectively used their aircraft carrier ships as plane runways. Their basic plan of attack was to destroy enemy ships by dropping bombs and launching torpedoes off planes. Soon, they figured out that the solution to victory was to take out the aircraft carriers, as they were the source of the spawning aircrafts. After all, without them, the planes could not land nor take off, eventually rendering them as useless. They were also easy targets from the air. Realizing that the aircraft carriers were of crucial importance to the battle, smaller warships were set up around them for protection from inevitable air attacks. They were supposed to gun down attacking aircrafts before they could get to the carrier. The way these warships were set up was called a screen, with similar tactics to that of a screen seen in basketball. However, the offensive side would form a ring around the carrier to stop the defensive side from attacking. The carrier would be moving in zigzag patterns to make it a difficult target to hit. Now for a rundown of each day. May 4th. The official starting date of the battle, but ships had not yet sighted each other, but a plane launched from the USS Yorktown damaged an enemy destroyer and sank 2 smaller ships. The American commander assumed that the Japanese would be protecting Port Moresby due to their invasion plan. However, the Japanese had come in from behind near the Solomon Islands in hopes to catch the Allies. May 5th. This was a day of searching. A large amount of time was spent simply searching the vast seas for the opposing side. No conflict occurred on this day. May 6th. Okay, so this wasn't the most thrilling battle, as this day was not much different to the previous day. Now both sides were reaching the middle of the Coral Sea, and the next day had much planned. May 7th. This was the first day that the Japanese spotted US ships. They attacked and disabled 2 US tanker ships, mistaking them for carriers. Meanwhile, US planes found the Japanese aircraft carrier called the Shoho and destroyed it. The Allied fleet later headed towards New Guinea to attack the Japanese that were headed for Port Moresby. not knowing that they wouldn't show up. The Japanese felt beaten without their Shoho, and they didn't continue their invasion. 18 veteran Japanese pilots died that day, and their experience simply couldn't be restored. May 8th, the final showdown. Aircraft from both sides joined in fierce conflict. After nearly 3 days of intense searching, they finally found each other. Still keeping a distance of over 300 kilometers, they launched planes preparing to attack. As pilots were flying to the opposing carrier ships, they passed each other but didn't shoot. They just watched each other fly by. Later, the American carrier Yorktown was damaged along with the Japanese carrier Shokaku. After this, the Japanese withdrew. In 2009, veteran Tommy Sims said that he believed that their efforts saved Australia from an oncoming Japanese invasion. However, it can never be 100% confirmed that they did plan on invading Australia. The overall losses of the Japanese force was evidently larger than the US loss. Much to Australia's surprise, they lost no men in the battle and came out victorious with US as allies. Australia's part in this fight is clearly seen by their input of ships, crew, planes, and their dedication to the battle. In ways of changing perspectives, this once again was the first battle to ever be carried out the way it was, so it set a new standard for future battles. To show just how much this influenced our present society, Prime Minister Tony Abbott requested just this year in May that Australia's naval assault ships be fitted to carry strike fighter planes, effectively turning them into aircraft carriers. So the events of the battle are still changing things today. Overall, it made countries think about the way that they could attack and use the Navy in a new and more effective way. Australia in particular, who had first-hand involvement, implemented this strategy until 1982. And it has certainly changed the Navy force of Australia and the way that the world views us.